What's up, football world? I am Bucky Brooks. This is the Bucky Brooks Show. And man, I love it. Even in the dog days of summer, I love when someone gives us an opportunity to talk about football in a different way. Jeremy Fowler, famous of ESPN, recently dropped the first of his top 10 pieces where basically he pulls a bunch of coaches, executives, and NFL personnel and takes their tabulations on who are the top 10 at the position. He then publishes that piece with these guys ranked. And he started with quarterbacks. And I think, one, the piece is unique. I think you need to go check it out. Go to ESPN.com, check out Jeremy Fowler. He's not only doing quarterbacks, he's doing every position group. And so there's some interesting intel in that piece. But I think what was big in his piece is he ranked Josh Allen ahead of Pat Mahomes. And then he also has some other surprises baked in there. So rather than break down his piece and regurgitate all the information that he said, I decided, well, if Jeremy's ranking his top 10, I'm going to put out my top 10 quarterbacks, and there'll be some natural debates that kind of take place. But before we talk about my top 10, let's check out the MVP odds on FanDuel Sportsbook. There we see regular season MVP odds, and you got Josh Allen sitting at the top with plus 600, Lamar Jackson and Drake Maye plus 850, Joe Burrow right behind there, plus 900, the reigning MVP Matthew Stafford plus 900, and I would say the guy that everybody adores and loves, Justin Herbert of the LA Chargers, is sitting at plus 1100. Now, if you're a hardcore football fan, the names that you see up there are not surprises. Those are the guys that we always talk about being top 3 or 4. The only one that is missing is Pat Mahomes. And the reason why that's interesting is when I go to my top 10, it starts with Patrick Mahomes at number 1. And I understand there's some consternation of Pat Mahomes coming back off that ACL injury, the one that caused him to miss the last part of 2025. But look, man, he is still the NFL's biggest boogeyman, if you ask me. I'm looking at someone who's a 3-time Super Bowl champ, a guy who led the Kansas City Chiefs to 5 Super Bowls in 6 years. He's a 2-time NFL MVP. And let's be honest, when you look at the individual numbers and the team success, it's hard for me to rate anyone above him. I'm looking at 267 pass touchdowns in his first 9 seasons. That's tied for second with Peyton Manning. You got 24 game-winning drives, 20 fourth-quarter comebacks. And to me, that's significant because this is a team that up until last year have been dominating the league, particularly since he took over. And when I think about the combination of hardware, the winning pedigree, the resume, then when you watch him play, look, man, this is the guy that everyone should want as their QB1. And I understand people are kind of lumping everything, the team success or the team failures on Pat Mahomes, but I don't think you can necessarily do it. I would say like the last 3 or 4 years, particularly those last couple Super Bowl runs that they made, he was doing it with one hand tied behind his back. They didn't have a notable number 1 receiver on the perimeter. They didn't have I would say, a competent running game to support him. And they had a defense that played lights out when they needed to under Steve Spagnuolo. But make no mistake, Patrick Mahomes was doing this on his own accord. And so even though people kind of prefer the younger model in Josh Allen, I'm still holding it down for Patrick Mahomes. Look, at the end of the day, he is the GOAT. He'll be celebrated as the GOAT with Tom Brady. And if we're going to say he's the GOAT, the greatest of all time, I don't think we can take away his number 1 spot on this list. That's why Pat Mahomes will continue to be number 1 for me going into 2026. All right, now let's go to the runner-up on my list, but the front runner on most guys' list, and I'll say Josh Allen. Here's the thing about Josh Allen. I understand all the debates and all the cases that should be made for him being QB1. Coming off of what he did last year, look, you can certainly make the case that he deserves to be the number 1 guy on this list. I still think that even though he's the only player with 200 pass touchdowns, 50-plus rush touchdowns, he's remarkable in terms of the number of 25 and 10 seasons he's put together in terms of 25 pass touchdowns, 10 rush touchdowns. Look, man, he's the emperor with no clothes because he hasn't had the level of postseason success that you would want to see from someone who has accomplished as he is as an individual talent. Now, you certainly could put that on Sean McDermott and that staff when he was there. They just didn't necessarily maybe support him enough to be able to get it done. They didn't come through in big games and all of that. But at some point, we always measure the quarterbacks by the success that they have as a team, and that success should lead to Super Bowl rings and Super Bowl appearances and those things. And so when I talked about Pat Mahomes, a lot of what I talked about was just the team accomplishments and being able to challenge Tom Brady for the GOAT moniker. I can't do that right now with Josh Allen because the team has not succeeded enough. And we can debate whether he's been given enough to be able to do it. I've talked about the lack of blue chippers around him. Offensively is James Cook, maybe Deion Dawkins. That's what he's dealt with. They did trade and get DJ Moore this season, but I don't know if anyone would rate DJ Moore as a top 5 or maybe even a top 10 receiver in this league. So what we're asking Josh Allen to do is to punch above his weight. And even though he's done it in so many regards, when we're talking about being the top quarterback on this list, it's not just what your individual stats suggest, it's what your team has also been able to accomplish. Fair or not, that is the way that we judge quarterbacks. And because that's the way that we judge them, I just can't give him the number 1 deal. Now, we'll revisit this at the end of the year, and Joe Brady certainly has great plans to help elevate Josh Allen's game and to elevate the rest of this offense and this team. But until we see it, I can't believe it. And so that is why Josh Allen is number 2 behind Patrick Mahomes on this list. Number 3, let's go to Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford, the reigning MVP, kind of came out of nowhere to surpass some of the other guys on this list. And the reason why I say he came out of nowhere, he has been a guy that we've talked about for a long time in this league since he was the number 1 overall pick coming out of Georgia. I think this marriage that he has had with the LA Rams and Sean McVay has been a match made in heaven. Not only is Matthew Stafford one of the more talented quarterbacks that we've ever seen in the league in terms of his arm talent, his moxie, his gunslinger mentality, but we have the perfect play caller to set him up for success. Sean McVay is nothing short of a wizard when it comes to getting on the whiteboard and creating big play opportunities for the quarterback. Matthew Stafford has certainly taken advantage of that last season. 45 touchdowns, only 8 interceptions. He is the active leader in fourth quarter comebacks and game-winning drives. We have seen as long as the Rams have the ball at the end of the game, they always have a chance because number 9 always gives them a chance to find the winner's circle. The only thing that I can knock on him and why I couldn't push him up even higher is, look, his age. Talking about 38, 39 years of age. He's nearing the end of a great run. But even in the midst of a run that is kind of nearing the twilight, I think you have to give him his flowers as one of the top quarterbacks in the league. The way this guy is able to do it, on script, off script, traditional passes thrown from the pocket, no-look passes thrown around defenders. He has it all in his bag. And the one thing that I love about him is, even though we could talk about him having 2 number 1 receivers on the perimeter and Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, it doesn't matter. He elevates who's ever on the field with him. One of the reasons why the league is going crazy about tight ends is the work that Matthew Stafford did last year with 13 personnel, with 3 tight ends on the field. He consistently found a way to torch and terrorize defenses. You've seen it. I've seen it. Everyone continues to see it. Matthew Stafford is a top 5 quarterback. More importantly, Matthew Stafford is bumping on the greats, Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes. That's why he's number 3 on my list. How about Joe Burrow? Joe Burrow has to be 4th on this list. And normally when we talk about it, it's always the big 3. And the big 3 has normally been Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow. Right now, we're saying that Matthew Stafford has crashed the party, but Joe Burrow is going to have a chance to get it back. I don't know if there is a better pure pocket passer in the league than Joe Burrow. Coming out of LSU, he has proven to be everything that people thought he would be when he led LSU on that historic run and winning the Natty. Continues to do it in Cincinnati. When I look at the Cincinnati Bengals, I see a team that offensively is darn near unstoppable. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, 1A, 1B on the perimeter. When they are healthy and available, this offense is efficient and it's explosive. You don't have the answers to stop them because on the perimeter, they can win their one-on-ones. And then you have a quarterback who is a pass-first point guard who consistently puts the ball in the hands of his playmakers, regardless of what the coverage is from the opponent. The only issue that you have with Joe Burrow is the durability. Since 2023, he has 16 games where he has not played. And you like to think about your franchise quarterback always being available. Now, some of it is just a stroke of bad luck, but the one thing that kind of prevents us from putting him in that category with those other guys is he just hasn't been on the field the way that they have. But when he is on the field, he is in that conversation for being a top 3 guy. And if the Cincinnati Bengals bounce back like some expect them to be, we'll be talking about Joe Burrow challenging for the number 1 spot when we have this same conversation in 2027. So not quite in the top 3. He sits at number 4. He'll be mad about it, but I think we'll get the best of Joe Burrow this year, and then we'll revisit this conversation next year. Now at 5, I got a bit of a surprise, and I think if we're doing this list honest, we got to do it based on what we most recently saw from a player. Well, Drake Maye, to me, is a top 5 quarterback based on how he finished as the MVP runner-up last year. And you may not like how he performed in the postseason, and that is a part of the narrative that we have to write when it comes to telling his story. But you can't deny how special he was last season. And as a second-year player going into his 3rd year, look, you just don't see this kind of stuff. Number 1 in completion percentage, number 1 in yards per attempt, number 1 in passer rating, check, check, check. That's all Drake Maye. Drake Maye is efficient. Drake Maye is effective with or without an established number 1 receiver on the perimeter. Last year, he did it with Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is out here talking about he is the top number 2 receiver in the league. So think about that. A guy who is proclaiming himself to be the top number 2 is your number 1, and you still put up the numbers that Drake Maye put up. I understand that Josh McDaniel's system really set him up for success. I understand that Mike Vrabel is one of the top coaches in the league. But what the young fella did as a second-year pro stands out to me. And because he's been able to do it inside the pocket while also flashing the athleticism and the mobility to make things happen on the script and off the script, man, I think you are looking to be hard to keep him out of the top 5. And I know we like to say that this is a bit of a lifetime achievement award, but my eyes saw him dominate the league last year. I'm going to continue to rock with Drake Maye as one of those top players. And that is why Drake Maye has to be a top 5 player, because there hasn't been anyone who's done more with less to lead a team to a Super Bowl than Drake Maye. And when you look back at that offense and you look at the lack of blue chip players, particularly on the perimeter, I think you have to put a feather in Drake Maye's cap as one of the top young players at the position in the league. Now let's go to number 6. And I know the flock is going to be after me because Lamar Jackson is out of the top 5. And I am going to give Lamar Jackson his flowers as a 2-time MVP who probably should have 3 MVP awards on his mantle. He is one of the best that we have seen. However, Lamar Jackson wasn't the same last year. Injuries prevented him from practicing, from playing, from being the guy that we've seen dominate the league. And make no mistake, I'm going to give him his flowers when it comes to dominating the league. He is a guy who has over 6,000 rush yards. And you just think about what he's been able to do as a dual threat playmaker. He is explosive with the ball in his hands. And early in his career, he dazzled us with the way that he ran the ball on the perimeter, continued to terrorize and torment defenses by being the guy that could get on the perimeter, run QB power, run QB sweeps, do things that we just haven't seen in the pros. But then I would say that under Todd Monken, he really grew as a passer. 4,000-yard season in 2024. At one point, he had 41 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions on the way to winning some hardware. This is a guy that is phenomenal when it comes to being able to get it done. But last year was the first year that I saw a little bit of a decline come. Now, people are talking about the injuries. I saw him unable to run away from defenders that he used to leave in the dust. I saw him have more struggles when it came to being the runner on the perimeter. And look, I'll be remiss if I don't start thinking about someone who is nearing the age of 30 beginning to fall off as a dual threat athlete. We saw this happen with Cam Newton. We also saw it happen with Russell Wilson. I'm not saying that it's over for Lamar Jackson, but I am saying that I'm worried. Can he be the pure pocket passer that you need to be to age gracefully in this league? That's the $1 million question that Lamar Jackson will have to answer if he wants to get the bag. Because look, with that contract coming up and the Ravens having to contemplate whether they really want to continue to hitch their wagon to Lamar Jackson for the long haul, it really comes down to how he performs in the pocket going forward. Love all the accolades that he's received as a dual threat, but now he's going to have to be more of a traditional quarterback. Is he good enough to dominate the game? like he did it as a dual threat, that remains to be seen. But for now, we can put him at number 6 on this list. Let's go to 7. And I know there's a love-hate relationship with Dak Prescott. I know that there are the Cowboys haters out there that says that will say Dak Prescott is a choke artist. Doesn't get it done in the postseason, hasn't gotten it done, don't understand why there's so much conversation about him, yada, yada, yada. But what I will say about Dak Prescott is I think he's probably the most underrated quarterback in this league when it comes to what he's accomplished and how he is viewed. When you go back and you look at a guy with 4 seasons with 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, that's the 6th most in the league in NFL history. Let's talk about some of the guys that are ahead of him on that list. Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, and Phillip Rivers. When we talk about those 5 guys, boy, we can't wait to give them their flowers. Well, if Dak Prescott is in that conversation, we need to give him his flowers. And you can talk about it being a product of regular season success and all of those things. Doesn't matter. Here's what I know to be true. Dak Prescott has 2 of the best receivers in the league, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, respectively. If healthy, they are hard to find defenses with enough defensive backs that can cover those 2 guys one-on-one all day. More importantly, I don't know if you can even double team one and live with the other going crazy, because Dak Prescott has proven that if you take away one, he'll find the other, and he does not mind throwing not only to the other guy, but to the complements around them, whether it's the tight end and Jake Ferguson, whether it's the backs coming out the backfield, he will throw the ball to the open man. And Brian Schottenheimer has helped him take his game to an even higher level since he's arrived. You think about Dak Prescott playing on time, playing on schedule, finding a way to deliver the ball on target. There are not many guys that can do what he does. Now, we can have the debate and the conversation about the Cowboys' lack of postseason success. We're still going all the way back to what is 97, when the last time we saw the Dallas Cowboys make a Super Bowl. But what I will say is when the Dallas Cowboys are rolling, and they are rolling with this quarterback in tow, it is all about Dak Prescott being able to throw the ball effectively on the perimeter. If he's healthy, and if this offense is rocking and rolling, and if the defense gives them a little bit of resistance, then you can talk about the Dallas Cowboys not only being a team that can make the playoffs, but a team that can contend on a higher level. And a lot of that is going to be due to the way that number 4 plays in the pocket. Now, from one underrated quarterback to another, let's throw up Jared Goff as number 8 on this list. Now, Jared Goff was cast away. Like, he was cast off, thrown aside, despite leading the LA Rams to a Super Bowl appearance. It didn't go his way, and there was a lot of frustration in LA about the way that Jared Goff performed. They were saying he was a bit of a system quarterback, a product of what Sean McVay had done. I would say this about Jared Goff. When he went to the Detroit Lions, he has proven all the naysayers wrong. The last 2 years, he has combined for over 9,000 yards. He has 73 touchdowns. He has 5 seasons with over 4,500 pass yards. The only guys to have reached that accomplishment, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, and Peyton Manning. Look, Jared Goff is a number 1 overall pick, but we rarely talk about him being one of those guys that is a star in this league. To me, when you watch him play and you watch him operate this system with Ben Johnson and without Ben Johnson, it doesn't change his game. He is a guy that is a dragon slayer when it comes to being able to make these throws on the perimeter. The efficiency, the effectiveness, and the explosiveness of the Lions offense makes them dangerous. And a lot of that is due to number 16 consistently finding the strike zone. Until someone can tell me why we shouldn't like Jared Goff as a top 10 quarterback, I'm going to continue to rock with him at number 8. That is why he sits well up on my list as one of the top quarterbacks in the league. Now, let's go to his division rival. And this is one that people were debating about Caleb Williams and what to really do with him, because the numbers don't necessarily say, hey, man, this is a top 10 quarterback, because you have a guy that was a sub 60% passer, a guy who has been a bit inconsistent when it comes to throwing the ball all over the yard. But what I see is a guy, look, he called himself the Iceman. He is the Iceman based on the way that he closes games out in the fourth quarter. Last season alone, 6 fourth-quarter comebacks. We saw another one in the postseason against the Green Bay Packers. When the game is on the line, this guy plays at his best. And I know sometimes when we talk about these lists, we don't fully consider how someone performs in the postseason. But I got to tell you, just the eyes in watching Caleb Williams perform, particularly late in games, you have to love his game. No matter what it looks like early, he always delivers late. And one of the things that we talk about a franchise quarterback, the franchise quarterback has to give you hope. If you're a Bears fan, when the ball is in his hands, you have a lot of hope and a lot of belief that he's going to find a way to get it done. I just think that when you have someone who has been able to do it the way that he's done it as a closer, and then you look at the numbers and dig deep and you figure out, hey, he has over 1,100 pass attempts, but he only has 13 touchdowns. So all the things they were really worried about when he left USC, could he be the guy that is a gunslinger but still take care of the ball? Yes. Can he take his team to another level when he gets the coach that he needs in Ben Johnson? Yes. Can he take the next step to be an MVP candidate? Question mark. I'm going to say yes, he can. And that is why he is number 9 on my list, because I think Caleb Williams is special. And I think he is only going to continue to ascend with Ben Johnson behind him. Now at number 10, and I understand people are going to call me a homer because I have Trevor Lawrence at number 10 in this spot. And I understand the other quarterbacks that should be considered on this list. People will talk about Justin Herbert. They'll talk about Brock Purdy. Baker Mayfield could be in the conversation. Jordan Love also could jump in there. How could you exclude Jalen Hurts? All of them have great cases. But I'm going to make the case for Trevor Lawrence being in there. 1, he was an MVP finalist last year. 2, last year, when you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars rip off 13 wins, win the division, a lot of that was due to the way that Trevor Lawrence finished the season. Another 4,000-yard season. Last 7 games, 18 touchdowns, only 3 picks, passer rating of 109.6. And he did it in his first year under Liam Cohen. Well, let's think about what Liam Cohen did for others. Liam Cohen, the Baker Mayfield that I talked about, Liam Cohen had Baker Mayfield throwing 41 touchdowns. So if we think about Trevor Lawrence having 38 touchdowns responsible for a season ago, fully understanding the offense in year 2, why wouldn't his numbers continue to improve? If we talk about the guy that is already being celebrated and hailed as maybe an MVP candidate, maybe one of the guys that was worthy of holding up the hardware, if he gets better, what are we going to say then? Number 1 overall pick who has led the Jaguars to the postseason. They have to advance and make it happen for him to get all of the credit that he deserves as one of the premier playmakers at the position. But if you watch the Jaguars last year, and I don't know if many of you guys watched the Jaguars, but I'm always there. I see it. I saw how he got down. I saw how he let it rip after Liam Cohen encouraged him. I am all in on the Trevor Lawrence experience. You can say what you want to about the number 1 overall pick kind of being the guy that has been a favorite of the critics since he came out. But I'm just going to say the numbers speak for themselves. If you watch the way that they performed down the end, the stretch, when the offense averaged over 30 points a game, second most in the league, this is a team that can get it done. And a large part of why they're able to get it done is because of Trevor Lawrence and what Trevor Lawrence brings to the table. In year 2 under Liam Cohen, it's only going to get better. So I'm talking about him being 10 now, but next year when we had this conversation, he could be top 5. I'm excited about where he is going. More importantly, I'm excited about what the Jags are going to do to unlock him as he becomes one of the premier quarterbacks in this league. So let's take a look at the list again. My top 10 from 1 to 10, Mahomes, Allen, Stafford, Burrow, Maye, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, Caleb Williams, and Trevor Lawrence. I know everyone is not going to agree with me, and I'm okay with that. But you know what we can do? You can drop a comment on this channel. We can chat about it. We can discuss why you believe or don't believe that some of my guys are top 10. I am here for all the smoke that wants to come along when you make a list. So make sure you leave a comment and make sure you join the chat, and we can have this interactive discussion as to why my top 10 is my top 10 and why I'm confident that my 10 guys are better than any list that you can come up with. We can talk about it. But until next time, make sure you check out all the cool things that we are doing on Bleav. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. Until next time, I am Bucky Brooks, and we're out.